Welcome back. We are still dissecting Thursday's ruling by the five-judge High Court bench. Now, Thursday night's ruling, which nullified the BBI and its quest to amend the Constitution, seems to have badly exposed President Uhuru Kenyatta to litigation should superior courts uphold some of the declarations. KTN senior political reporter Duncan Hemba now takes a look at the can of worms that the five-judge bench could have opened.
It was the proverbial night of long knives, especially for President Uhuru Kenyatta. The five-judge bench presided over by Justice Professor Joel Ngugi that declared the BBI Constitutional Amendment Bill unconstitutional, null and void, effectively opened a Pandora's box.
A declaration is hereby made that Mr. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has contravened Chapter 6 of the Constitution and specifically Article 73, Sub-Article 1, Sub-Sub-Article A, Sub-Sub-Sub-Article 1 by initiating and promoting a constitutional change process contrary to the provisions of the Constitution on amendment of the Constitution.
The first salvo fired directly at the president was followed by this.
A declaration is hereby made that civil court proceedings can be instituted against the president or a person performing the functions of the office of the president during their tenure of office in respect of anything done or not done contrary to the Constitution.
The two declarations by the court can be sufficient grounds for anybody to petition Parliament to initiate an impeachment process against the head of state. This stems from the fact that when he took oath of office, he swore to this:
that I will obey, preserve, and protect
and defend this Constitution of Kenya as by law established.
And defend this Constitution of Kenya as by law established.
According to constitutional lawyer Kamotho Waiganjo, the court misdirected itself on the parameters of the executive power, defined them narrowly, and ended up condemning the president for acts which are within the general authority of the country's chief executive. On his part, the BBI Task Force Joint Secretary and High Court Advocate Paul Mwangi simply says, this is not law, this is politics. On whether the president has recourse, High Court Advocate Kamotho Waiganjo says this aspect of the matter will definitely be appealed from among others, and I believe it has good chances of success. End of quote. President Kenyatta is yet to react to Thursday's bombshell ruling that not only poured cold water on his legacy project, but is also threatening to soil the Uhuru legacy. Duncan Hemba, KTN News.
Thank you, Duncan. Before we get into the politics of it all, let's bring in a man who is only the other person to have instigated a quest to change the Kenyan Constitution through a popular initiative. That is lawyer Dr. Ekuru Aukot, joining us via the phone. Dr. thank you for joining us. Very quickly, what is your take on the ruling by the five-judge bench vis-a-vis the fact that they said this was masked as a popular initiative, but it was initiated by the president? You did the Punguza Mizigo. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Ben, I'm so vindicated because when the handshake happened, I remember issuing a statement sometimes, I think it was 2018, February, where I said that BBI, actually about August 2018, that BBI was directionless, amorphous, unconstitutional, and a total waste of our taxpayers' money. And people didn't believe me. I went to court before Justice Mativo and said to declare this thing unconstitutional. People didn't listen to us. We also raised the issues in the midst of this pandemic, that how can we be spending 14 billion Kenya shillings for a referendum when Kenyans cannot even be vaccinated, mass tested, and all that. So I have held the opinion from the very onset that BBI was a political con game, that it was initiated by two individuals. It is not a popular initiative as defined in Article 257 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. For you to initiate a popular initiative, you actually must go to the people with general proposition or a bill. And once people support you, you garner at least a threshold of 1 million signatures, then that becomes a constitutional, a popular initiative. Remember, BBI started by Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta shaking hands and saying that they have got shared prosperity, that they want to establish what ails this country. And in my main communication as the party leader of Third Way Alliance Kenya, we brought to the fore the fact that what ails this country has since been established in a number of commission reports. For example, on matters election, Justice Johan Kriegler established how we must manage our election. On matters violence, Justice Waki did the same thing. On issues to do with land, irregular allocation of land, Ndungu, or killing Ndungu, established that. Ouko Commission, the TJRC, those are the issues that ail this country. What ails this country is not about a disagreement between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, and then you take the country to an amorphous and constitutional process called BBI.
All right.
You know?
Yes.
We say that from. So for me, I'm very happy with this judgment, and I'm so vindicated. And yes, if there is really anything that this country needs going forward, then is how do we reduce the burden of governance on Kenyans?
All right.
And that's why, for me, I've been promoting Punguza Mizigo all along. It's about reducing the burden of governance, not increasing. Kenyans do not want extra members of parliament.
Tell me this, Daktari. There's a question here. You are the CEO of the body that drafted this constitution, the committee of experts. There are people who think that we may have set the bar too high in terms of amending the constitution. They think that were highlighted, the 4 points, 4 stages that were highlighted by the 5-judge bench. Remember where this term Wanjigo came from when the late President Moi asks, does Wanjigo know anything about the constitution? Do you think that it is possible that we set the bar too high, or it should be that high?
Well, to be honest, Ben, I was in the committee of experts that wrote this constitution, and I superintended the whole process. Okay? And the constitution belongs to Wanjiku. I went around this country asking Kenyans how you want to be governed. And we as committee of experts, constitutional law experts, we reduced that into what is the current constitutional text. That became the social contract between Wanjiku and the state.
Right.
So you cannot disassociate Wanjiku from this constitution. This constitution came from Wanjiku. Remember, Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya vests all power and authority on the people. And they can exercise that power directly or indirectly. So whatever the President of the Republic of Kenya does, he must do it on representation of the people. So you cannot take away the role of Wanjiku. And I'm so happy that the judges centralize the people, the Wanjiku, in any constitution-making process. And that is why we crafted Article 256 and 257. So you cannot bypass that. If you bypass that, two individuals sitting and agreeing, we have got what we call shared prosperity. Supposing all the 49-point-something million of us shook hands with the President of the Republic of Kenya, how many constitutional amendments will you probably have? And you see, the most important thing then also is this. For a law or a constitution to be meaningful, you must establish what is the common good.
All right.
What was the common good in this BBI referendum? It is about expanded executive. Kenyans do not want an expanded executive. They want an executive to be reduced.
All right.
Kenyans never said they want more members of parliament.
Yes. Thank you, Bwana Wakili, for your thoughts. Thank you for your comments. Very enlightening, Dr. Ekuru, court lawyer, and of course, CEO of the Committee of Experts that drafted the Kenyan Constitution.
I don't know why you are shy from recognizing the fact that I'm actually the party leader of Third Way Alliance Kenya.
Yes, you are, Bwana Wakili. Thank you. Story for another day, though. Thank you. Dr. Wakili Kipchumba, tell me this. Let's get into the politics of it all now. This seems to be a blow to President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, who took this as a legacy project, so to speak. The deputy president refused to have a say in this, but he has been implicated politically in terms of, we have seen some of his political allies voting for the bill in parliament. What does this mean for this country's politics going into 2021?
I'll take that to mean what is the implication of the 5-bench judgment to the top 3 political leaders in the country, that is Uhuru, Ruto, and Raila Odinga.
Sure.
First of all, the most affected person, and negatively so, is Uhuru Kenyatta. for a simple reason. One, we have been told something that everybody must go home celebrating, that a president can be sued. It is something, I think our democratic space has expanded. As we even are happy about the unconstitutional and legality of BBI, we must be happy that in our lifetime, a 5-bench court sitting has said that a president can be sued in a civil case for things he does outside the remit that the Constitution has given him. The other thing that you have to ask yourself is this, Ben. We have, between now and when a referendum should be done, we have exactly 2 months. I don't know how Uhuru Kenyatta will wiggle through and get us a referendum before August the 9th of this year. The other thing that also affects Uhuru Kenyatta is that going to the future and having participated in the case between Ferdinand Waititu versus EACC and another at the Court of Appeal level, the ruling that was given at that court was to the extent that when a person has been found to have offended the Chapter 6, he is not of good health. And if a voter was to approach court today, Uhuru Kenyatta can be stopped from accessing both State House and the office of the president because a court sitting, a constitutional court sitting, found him not to be of good health to administer the enterprise that Kenya is. Until then, he is supposed to have resigned the morning after that ruling. That is if we were in another jurisdiction. That is how much it has affected him. To Raila Odinga, it might seem to have slowed his pace. It might seem to have questioned his judgment as to some of these legal things. Look at the people representing Raila today. There is a slow question that must be asked in the background. What happened to Orengo? What happened to Atiende Omolo? What happened to Okongo Omogeni? The brilliant brains that normally represent the interest that Raila Odinga pushes. We have now gone down to Paul Mwangi and Sehanya and Awele there. I'm not saying they are second-grade lawyers,
well, to
but
be fair,
I'm saying
Atiende Omolo and James Orengo tried to speak up, but they
that's
were
what I'm saying.
Politically silenced.
Those are some of the questions we need to ask Raila as we go to the future.
Right.
But in terms of political implication,
yes,
funny enough, from where I sit, it has increased Raila's bargain and how we can bargain with Uhuru Kenyatta. Where we are, Uhuru Kenyatta now, his problems are tied with Raila. He needs Raila for survival for a simple reason. It gives Raila an opportunity to bargain for something, even a small morsel of soup, as we go towards the next election. On William Ruto, although he has had a position on BBI, which was communicated by he had a parliamentary PG, and he communicated his position. It has emboldened him. That is one you can take away from the whole thing. And secondly, it gives the people who have been supporting William Ruto behind the shadows that kumbe there is an end in the era of Uhuru Kenyatta. If courts can be bold and pronounce so, people will now start. And finally, also on Uhuru Kenyatta, Ben, if he doesn't get a good stay, the 14th evening judgment might signify the beginning of his lame duck presidency.
All right. Well, so Cherotich, you've called this process a Trojan horse from the get-go. What does it mean politically, in politics?
You know, Ben, I was just reflecting as Kipchumba was speaking, and I thought to myself that perhaps after Wanjiku, the next biggest victim of the hoodwink of the Trojan horse is Honorable Raila Odinga himself, because I found it very difficult from the very beginning to understand how such a stalwart of democracy and the rule of law could participate in such a wholly unconstitutional process as was pronounced by the judges on Thursday. And so I believe, and I was listening to the ruling, I don't think there was a lot of mention directly of the name of Honorable Raila Odinga. And I think that if he is wise, he will take this opportunity to begin to extricate himself, if possible, from this process. I think that if it was a question of campaigning and winning, and as somebody who has voted for Honorable Raila in the past, and many Kenyans have, he had every opportunity, in my opinion, to run without the mutilation, without the constitutional coup that BBI was presenting to the people of Kenya, and still have a high chance of winning. So in this particular instance, his hands have been dirtied. He's almost going to be a bit like Lady Macbeth trying to remove the spot from his hand. But I still believe that Honorable Raila Odinga has an opportunity to be on the right side of history. In terms of Deputy President William Ruto, the systematic marginalization and sidelining of him as a person and the Deputy President of this republic has meant that his nose has stayed extremely clean throughout the process of BBI. So even as the judges pronounce themselves on the matter, there is no mention of the Deputy President. He's busy doing his thing, saying, you've decided to kick me out, keep me out, threaten impeachment, humiliate, marginalize, de-whip my so-called allies or perceived allies. He's busy doing his own thing, I believe. And come 2022, with or without BBI, I think he will be on the ballot. So he has actually evaded, because we can hold President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto responsible for the mismanagement and misrule since 2013. But you can say that in this particular matter of BBI, the Deputy President has been out.
Has the President opened himself up for litigation?
Absolutely. You're saying lame duck begins today, Kipchumba. I think it began a long time ago. His Big Four legacy collapsed zamani sana. We are talking about a 16 billion shilling BBI illegal, unconstitutional, unlawful project when the Big Four has not been accomplished. We have a president, and everyone is objecting to the fact that he's called Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta. If you want to be called President Uhuru Kenyatta, please act presidential. You're citizen number 00001 if you had an index number. And you're busy here violating Chapter 6. You want people to approve of you. You want the international community to laud you for being a bastion of democracy and development. And you can really twanga your nice English and make people think that Kenya is really a haven of progress and peace and love and unity. But you're here violating, overthrowing the Constitution that you committed to uphold. So in this particular instance, where I have, as you mentioned, the Trojan horse, say that this was an animal, a vehicle for succession politics, the only thing that President Uhuru Kenyatta should do is hope that he's not held liable, hope that he is not sued. Amalize aende. Because the Constitution is clear, come August next year, we must have an election. And whatever machinations existed behind this BBI process, it's dead in the water, it's dead on arrival. And he should step back and understand that he's open. This flank, that flank, every battlefront possible on him is open. Guns, figuratively, are trained on him, even though he's a commander-in-chief of the Republic of this country. And he needs to tread extremely carefully. No more Wakora network, you're in public abusing and insulting the judges and threatening people and intimidating people to do your will. The Constitution of Kenya is supreme, and he must know that. So he has suffered the biggest setback, in my opinion, through this BBI process.
Javas, does this signify the end of the handshake? Did the ruling on Thursday effectively disband the handshake, and should everybody go home, politically speaking?
Well, not quite, but it punctured the handshake and its intents, and it punctured various politicians variously. First, of course, we know that as they even prepared to have this matter appealed, one of the, upon the declarations of the High Court, the issue of the violation of Chapter 6, this appeal will only position the president as trying to magnify his political victimhood. And given that now it has set his path quite slippery, that any person can play political mischief or rise in the guise of the defense of the Constitution to have the issue of his impeachment and a motion brought to the floor of the House. For him to survive that, of course, as we know, he needs Raila Odinga, which means then to that extent that the handshake will have to be sustained for his political survival. Because if the handshake collapses today, then the moment it collapses, then it also puts President Uhuru Kenyatta on his way out of power because of the political games and cards that can be played at the National Assembly and on the floor of the House in the Senate. Right. And that will be then a critical nail on the coffin of his politics. The other thing is that when you look at the handshake and the 9-point agenda, which of course ostensibly the issue of the amendment of the Constitution was supposed to make sure that Kenya realizes such high aspirations of the 9-point agenda. But let's ask ourselves, for instance, during the subsistence of this handshake, have we seen new corruption cases emerge? Yes. Then why is it that even in the subsistence of this handshake, we did not have a spirit driving the two great brothers to ensure that they extirpate, that they diminish, that they extinguish the spirit, the fruits, and even the seeds of corruption under their watch in this government?
All right.
So when you look at it that way, then we realize that, yes, the sovereignty of the people through the handshake, of course, and as well through this declaration has been upheld. But as people discuss these things, whereas I've read the statement from Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, I've read the statement from Orange House, I have read the statement from the BBI Secretariat of Honorable Waweru and Honorable Junet. I think we need to bring ourselves to the position of the court decisions, especially in Njoya and others versus Attorney General and others, 2004,
right,
as well as Priscilla Nyokavi and others versus Attorney General. The issue of the primordial power of the people in determining how they want to move forward, the kind of governance they want, and when you see the extent to which, for example, this decision has elevated the place of Article 10, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, the values and principles of governance, these things are very good. The way Scripture tells us that think about these things. We have been invited to the table to think about these things.
All right.
That the extent that, and both sides are pushing for the people, claiming to push for the people, then let us say that to what extent are we making sure that the greater good of the people is that which is protected? So it's not a question of the do or die, because related again to the issue of the handshake here, let's face it, as they approach the Court of Appeal, the other issue that arises is this. If it's a question of pursuit of the certificate of urgency, is a constitution amendment process an issue? Yes, it's an issue of public interest, but is it an issue that is very urgent for the survival of the nation?
Okay.
The answer is no. To that extent, then, you may find that the Court of Appeal may be hard-pressed to make sure that they rush to deal with this matter compared to other critical matters that are before it.
Great. All right.
And so looking at it that way, and also aware, let me just mention this, that Chief Justice Emeritus had advised the president to dissolve parliament. I'll not discuss that issue because it's a matter before court. But imagine the situation that the president finds himself in right now, end parliament. That right now they have to deal with this issue, deal with the issue of the budget, for example. But suppose the court, the way, for example, this member in court just declared that the Chief Justice is not a judge, you know, and that elevates the position of the independence of the judiciary. If at all we see what is being called the judicial activism here, but we see actually the judiciary entrenching itself properly to ensure that politics does not approach that altar,
Okay.
then we see that the president has got very few choices to make, politically and even constitutionally. One, that he has to make sure that the politics he plays with Raila Odinga, with William Ruto, are politics for the greater good of the nation. But moving forward, I think in the spirit of that handshake, President Kenyatta needs to work closely with Raila Odinga and even work closer with Musalia Mudavadi, work closely even with William Ruto, because I can assure you that some extent of vindication, remember that when you look at the text, the textual interpretation of this judgment, you realize that one may want to say that, is it possible that the court was agreeing with some thinking, or the thinking of Deputy President William Ruto, that for the greater good of the people, we need to have involvement of the people,
right,
and also having these issues to go to the referendum, not as a single question, but multiple questions.
All right.
Those are critical issues to reflect upon.
Mark Bichachi, have the final word on this. As the proponents of the BBI prepare to go to courts to appeal the ruling by the 5 judges, what is your political crystal ball telling you moving forward into the coming months? We have timelines, we have an election and a country to run.
Ben, let me just disabuse some statements that have been said here. Number one, let's remember that the BBI process was not going to end in the president's signature saying, here, I, Uhuru Kenyatta, have changed the constitution. Let's not forget that there was supposed to be a referendum, and in that referendum, Kenyans of any standing who are registered voters were going to vote on this issue. So to say that the butchering of this particular constitution, as people are saying here, was an abuse to Wanjiku without giving Wanjiku an option is not true. Let us also not forget that we are acting as though the interests of the political class and the interests of the people do not come to a confluence at any point. Let us remember that it's the people who make the politician. The politician is not elected by his own motion, and that brings me to the political ramifications. Number one, let us remember that there is a very huge coalition of people and leaders in this country who are dedicated to the candidate called Not William Ruto. That candidate, Not William Ruto, has just gotten a lot more votes because whereas some people may view this ruling as a bastion of justice, other people see it as an extension of the Tanga theorism, funded clandestinely by Tanga to bring about a constitutional stop to what the will of the people was. Some people are saying that whereas you do not have numbers with the public and you are afraid of the referendum, you just need to find 5 people who share your opinion and dislike of Uhuru Kenyatta, especially some of these 5 people were due for a promotion which the president denied them, then it can be argued. No, people have conspiracy theorized. Let me conspiracy theorize as well. Because if you can say Uhuru Kenyatta is wearing a Trojan horse, let us also do the theories that these judges could also have been compromised. And there's a clear trail that they have a vendetta against Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, as they call him.
Is it possible to appeal without disparaging the courts?
No, I'm not disparaging the courts. I'm not one of
the executive, have they?
What I'm saying is this, Ben. If we are going to be honest in this Kenyan conversation, we must be very real. And you ask me a political question, I'm giving you a political answer.
All right.
The same way one side has a conspiracy theory on the executive, there's equally a very tangible and provable conspiracy theory against the judges.
All right, thank you for that. We have
ruling about the president.
We have to leave it there for now. We are coming back for the final thoughts. Let's take another quick commercial break here on Inside Politics. Don't go too far. When we come back, we shall be giving you, the viewer, the chance as always to give us a call. Our studio lines will be scrolling on your screen. Give us your comments, questions, contribution to the discourse as we discuss what's happening with the BBI moving forward. Stand by for that.